I'm Brent Leary.
I'm Paul Greenberg.
Yeah, it's Friday. You know what that means. Excuse the intrusion. We are the CRM players and we're talking sports. And I'm wearing a brand new Rams kind of baseball-ish kind of jersey. I'm loving this.
Yeah, it's cool. I mean, it's multi-sport Rams.
Why not? We got multi-sport talk coming in today because a little later on, we have, I think, is going to be a really cool guest because I would say the sites that he kind of runs and operates, probably amongst my top 10 sites that I go to on a regular basis.
Yeah, pretty much literally about numbers 1 through 10.
right. Because there's Pro Baseball Reference, or is it just Baseball Reference?
No, it's Baseball Reference.
Right. Then there's Pro Football Reference.com. There's Pro Basketball Reference.com. And I think there's some other ones, but those are like
there's Pro Hockey. There's
Pro
Hockey Reference.com.
And there's a new football one called was it BF? PF? I think it's
PFB or something like that. It's a soccer one. And then there's a college football one.
College foot, and I love that one too, because I have to know the Eric Dickerson SMU stats just as much as I have to know the Eric Dickerson Rams stats. Yeah.
The only site that I love that pretty much they don't run, I mean, aside from the news sites, I mean, is Seamheads. That's the only site. So one of my suggestions to our guests will be that they take over Seamheads.
So, by the way, our guest is going to be the president of Reference. What is it? Reference.com?
Sportsreference.com.
Sean Forman.
Actually, you can get to all the sites from sports-reference.com, I'm pretty sure.
Right. But Sean Forman is joining us, and we're both really excited because we just love stats, and this guy is the provider of the stats that we crave when it comes to all the different sports that we like to watch. So he'll be joining us in a little while.
He's also, we've never met him, so this is going to be really interesting.
I've never physically talked to him. So I got an email intro to Sean from his cousin Pete, and he works over at Opus Research. And I had a call with Dan Miller and the guys over Derek Top and Pete, and they know that we do a sports show, or maybe I was telling them we do a sports show, and Pete just says, by the way, I should introduce you to my cousin. He runs all those sports reference sites. I was like, are you kidding me? Like baseball and football? Yes, please do. So I got the email intro, and he immediately got back and said, "Yeah, it sounds like it'd be a lot of fun." And he already knew Don Ziminder,
right?
Zinda, yeah, I can't.
No, it's
Zaminda. So he knew Don Zaminda because I think he's kind of been associated with the Sabers.org site for a number of years. That would make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So all these interactions were really. Let me say, as I mentioned, Opus Research. There's Ray. Good to see Ray.
Hey, Ray. Hey, Nicola.
Dan Miller. So it's because of a conversation. So I can tie this all back to Dan. So Dan and I had a conversation about a month ago about doing a live stream to get caught up with the voice and the conversational AI stuff. That led to a group call with the 3 Opus guys, with Pete being one of those Opus guys, and then Pete saying, "Hey, by the way, my cousin is Sean Forman, who runs all those good stat sites that you guys like." There's Pete Hedrick. Yes. Thank you, Pete, for introducing us to your cousin, Sean. So yes, he will be on shortly. So we are setting the stage for that to come on in a couple of minutes. So before we bring him on, you know what? I have been really enjoying the NBA playoffs. The games have been really tight. Last night, like the last 2 nights, each of these 3 games are won on the last shot. One game was won with 0 time on the clock, and the dude had to make at least one free throw to win the game outright, and he made the free throw. And then last night, the guy, there was a tied game, was Toronto and who is it? Toronto and the Celtics. Celtics are up 2-0. This is game 3. They score with like 1.5 seconds left to take the lead in the game. So you're figuring they're probably going to win and go up 3-0. And this whole playoff for this particular match going to go 3-0. It's done. Toronto throws this inbound pass. It's like all the way to the other side of where they inbounded the ball. The guy catches it, and this guy's like a 23-year-old young dude. He's sitting right on the 3-point line. He calmly just lifts it up, and holds it. The ball goes through with no time on the clock. So they went from pretty much being out of the that particular group going to 3-0. Now it's 2-1, and they kind of go into it with a lift because that was just one of the craziest endings you could think of.
That's amazing. So yeah. We can play point counterpoint here. I'm not enjoying the baseball season. Not a bit. I mean, it's not that it's terrible. I mean, oddly, I don't miss not having fans in the stands all that much. But you can see the toll, the lack of training, lack of spring training and so on. It's taken on the players. The baseball games are not terribly exciting. They're either blowouts or even when they're close, it's mostly due to not brilliantly pitched or extraordinary offensive shows, but somebody blowing it somewhere. Of course, the Yankees are completely, instead of next man up like last year, this is next man down, and it's pretty much staying that way. They were at one point, I mean, imagine this, in like 30 some odd games, they had 12 men on the injured list, right? Yeah, it was ridiculous. And, they just brought in a new trainer. It takes a few years for that to really take hold of new approaches. I get that. But the Yankees, of course, have been playing absolutely mediocre baseball, even though they do have a winning record and will probably make the playoffs. But the guy on second, all these the rules. I mean, I'm not that old school, and that hasn't been that big a distraction, but it's a little bit of one to see an inning start with a guy on second in extra innings. I'll tell you the only thing that I kind of like.
Wait a minute. Bob is saying this because of what happened last night. Don't get it twisted. Bob, look, you guys should be up 3-0 over Toronto, but that last shot was awesome. I'm sorry. Well, I'm not all that broken up for you, Bob, but you guys still have a good shot of winning.
Yeah, I actually like. Weirdly, it's the one Boston team I like is the Celtics. At least there was any COVID. What? There is COVID everywhere. There was, and Chapman's pitching like he still has it. I mean, he is. That's the other side. On the Yankees side, they're just operating disastrously. I mean, Chapman's given up 2 game-winning, not just blown saves, but literally lost games because of the way he's pitching. His ERA is like 10.8 or something, 10.86. So it's just, you can tell, you see, baseball requires a long loosening up, getting ready, getting your pitch count up, getting your swing out of rusty. I mean, it requires it. And you can tell all across the board. You remember me. I mean, I would watch all 162 games. This year, I monitor them, right?
I know.
Track them, and I don't even watch them.
I'm not getting the same number of, can you believe these guys did this?
No, because I'm expecting, the reason is, 1, I'm cutting them more slack, and 2, I'm expecting them to do this again, right? So to me, that's a real downside. The NBA seems to be the league that's kind of coming out the best in this as far as the games themselves. Hockey's, I actually have just paid some attention to hockey. I haven't really watched. And it's not bad. But
it's not bad, but you kind of have to remind yourself that they're still playing. Whereas Yeah, their TV contract is terrible. I hate to say it, but it is what it is. You know what? Danny had something, although it's kind of making a joke. We should say something about Tom Seaver because he was Mr. Met. I mean, he was the guy for so many years, and I know we have a couple of Mets fans that we know and love. One of them being our player in residence, Ginger Conlon. And of course, the other one is Alan Berkson, who is Freshworks, but he's also a fan of both of our shows that we have here. We'll talk a little bit about Tom Seaver because you grew up, you were in that age group that could appreciate him really a lot.
Oh yeah, I mean Seaver. I love Tom. Look, I'm not against the Mets. I don't dislike the Mets. I'm a New Yorker. I like all New York teams. And Tom Seaver was actually, I mean, we got to look at the guy. He was kind of like the Mets' Mickey Mantle, really. He was the golden boy of the Mets. I mean, you watch this guy as one of the greatest pitchers in the history of the game. And when he was pitching, you actually knew he was going there. He was going to be one of them just because he was dazzling. Just watching the guy pitch, it wasn't just for then he had a great fastball or anything like that. He was one of the earliest guys I ever saw who knew how to really intelligently pitch. He would, hit the corners when he needed the corners, come inside when he needed to come inside, knew how to throw a curve that did 4 different things, and had a big winning smile and, at least his public face, although I gather it's a mix really privately, but his public face was very warm and inviting. Everyone liked the guy. And, you couldn't help but be drawn to the Mets to watch Tom Seaver. And then think about it, goes on and wins 311 games. I mean, that's not seeing that anymore, not with 5-man rotations. And not with 60 game seasons.
The 69 Mets, I was too young to really know anything about that. But it's ironic, the two guys that I know most from that team, of course, Tom Seaver being one of them. I don't think of the 69 Mets when I think of Tom Seaver. That's just because I wasn't around. Well, I was like 2 or something. But the other guy's Tug McGraw. And I think of him as a Philly more than anything else. But he wasn't he one of the pitchers on the 69 Mets that kind of helped them get to where they were. Was it Jerry Kuzman, another dude that was on that one?
Yeah, he was Seaver was the first in rotation. Kuzman was second. I don't remember who was third. Ginger, you're here. I know that. So do you know who the rest of the Mets rotation was in 69?
Was Tug coming off the bench? Was Tug a relief pick? Was Tug a relief pitcher for the Mets even back then?
He was basically the equivalent of a Chapman. He was a closer, really, even though he was a relief pitcher. So and McGraw, and the thing with McGraw, of course, you know what he was known for, had this crazy,
screwball.
wildly. Well, he was a screwball too. I mean, he had right. He had this crazy personality, but you got to believe that was his what do you call it? Anthem, right? You got to believe his slogan, right? And he was always bubbling and happy. Ginger. I just assumed you'd know anyway as a student of Mets history. Nolan Ryan in the bullpen.
Yeah, McGraw was a reliever. Kuzma was part of starting.
Right.
Nolan Ryan, that's right. Oh my God, I forgot all about Nolan Ryan.
But well, listen though, I honestly that year McGraw was the star in the bullpen, right? And so McGraw, and the thing is, he was like Seaver in a certain way, meaning you couldn't wait to watch him pitch, not just because of his screwball, because it's so colorful. And of course, his son is Keith McGraw.
Well,
the country
Keith
singer.
McGraw.
Yeah.
Tim McGraw.
Tim McGraw. No.
Like, wait a minute. Maybe there is a Keith McGraw. I don't know.
That's his other. That's his. That was his.
Hey, nephew. You know what? I love all these Mets. I didn't know Dan Miller was a Mets fan. First of all, that's good to see, and I didn't know Donnie was a Mets fan either. Glad to see that.
That was I thought he was a Yankees fan actually.
Well, he's saying "Let's go Mets," so I don't know. Keep it in the city family. Let's put it like that. But guess what? I'm looking into the green room, and our guest is here, and this is really cool because neither one of us has actually spoken one word to this guy. but we are big fans of his sites. And matter of fact, before we bring him on, I wanted to, I started doing a little research here, and I found this New York Times article from last year. And first of all, I'm from Wilmington, so I'm 30 minutes from Philly, so that's where I grew up and all that. Did you know he was running this power site from like a church?
Yeah,
that's pretty cool. I mean,
actually, he had 11 people running that site too.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So, but then I found this one from the beginning of this year. So the original site that he started out with is Baseball Reference, and that's 20 years old, man. That's
wow.
And check out the spawning a 1B, and I say B because that doesn't mean million. That means 1 billion page views.
That's amazing. That
is amazing.
We get in a week.
Right. Well, I'm going to tell you right now, and I guess I'll tell him when we bring him on. I think I'm good for about 1 million pages for the Eric Dickerson page, and that's not even the Baseball Reference. I could probably say at least another 800,000 views for the Barry Bonds page. How about?
See, I'm not as ardent as you. I probably have 500,000 views for the Mickey Mantle page.
There it is. All right. So we say all that so that we can bring. Let me see if I can bring this back and bring in the president of sportsreference.com, Sean Forman. Sean, thank you for joining us, man. It's great.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
So
I think we ought to.
Thank you for 1 million and what was it, 1.8 million page views? I really appreciate it.
We're working on, we're going to try to get, listen, we're working on trying to get you to 2 billion by the end of this year.
Hey,
really get there.
First of all, we better send a special shout out to your cousin Pete Hedrick for making this happen, because I was just on a conference call with him, just talking about business kind of stuff, and I think I mentioned that Paul and I do this sports talk show, and he's like, oh, maybe I should introduce you to my cousin who he has all those sites, and I started thinking to myself, please do that. That'd be great.
I'm glad he did. Pete and I are about a year apart, so we'd spend, he and his brother and my brother are all about the same age, so we would be at my grandparents trading baseball cards every Christmas and going out and playing football and playing baseball. My grandparents had a farm, so it was we had a lot of great times. Either between playing sports and doing other stuff on that farm.
So, do you still have the cards?
If you had the Athletic article up there, you saw the background was that baseball. That's where all the cards went. So I still have
your collection.
Many of it, most of it. Yeah, I have to tell you, I'm of an age where baseball cards no longer carry any value at all, and so they're probably more useful as wallpaper at this point. So
see,
I have a Joe Montana rookie. I've got a Ricky Henderson rookie, but I was a little too young to if you have a lot of the early 70s or 60s cards, that's where
Too bad you don't have that Mike Trout rookie.
That's right. That's right. I guess I missed it on both ends. Then I was too old at that point.
The single most ridiculous card sale in history.
Right? It all became gimmicks after the 80s, in my opinion. Yeah. So that's my old man shaking fist at cloud. Moment.
So
before we get into the history, wait. Before we get there, I got to thank you for something. I don't know if you can see my.
I can see your background. Homer Jones.
Look, thanks to you, I can prove he's one of the most underestimated players in football, at least Giants history, if not football history. And I literally have this page bookmarked so that I can show people this guy. Well, it was the era of Bob Hayes, and Bob Hayes got all the PR, and this guy equally is probably faster, actually, and equally as good. Well, let's say nearly as good, but.
It's faster than, I don't know if I believe he was faster than Bob Hayes, though, right? Didn't Hayes run in the Olympics?
Yeah, Bullet Bob.
Champion. He was a champion. Right. This guy,
Hey, check out Dan. Dan's got what do you think in the spectrum of baseball cards are? Do you wish you had any of these? Louis Tion, I think I might want his.
Well, I mean, if those are rookie cards, they're pretty good, I bet. So.
McDowell,
yeah, that'd be a decent collection.
Okay.
Okay.
Was 64. Gary Bell was earlier. Yeah,
Wow, really?
or something. Yeah. Oh, I remember Sam McDowell's rookie year. I'm that old, right? So, anyway, tell one thing that I've personally been fascinated is just how you even got the idea of doing this.
It was, I was a graduate student in '98, starting in '96, '97. And so I was one of the few people at that time had high-speed internet. And so I was very interested in web design. I became very interested in web design. I would read, there was this old blog, Tomalot's Realm, that I would read every day. There was Jacob Nielsen, Philip Griesman, all these internet design people that I would read all the time. So I just became very interested in web design. And I also likewise had an interest in baseball. I was writing for this book called The Big Bad Baseball Annual. That was kind of a successor to Bill James, baseball abstracts from the 80s. And so I started doing the web design for that website. And there was a database that somebody had basically cracked. There was an old FoxPro database that you could get out of the Total Baseball on a CD-ROM. They had cracked that, put it up on a website. And I basically thought, a baseball encyclopedia would be much more useful on a computer than in a book, because if I'm looking at Mickey Mantle, I then want to see the 65 Yankees. I have to turn 1,000 pages to get to the team section. And if I had a website, I could just click on it and see all the Yankees there. And so it started out very simple. I had a fellowship to complete my graduate degree, and basically didn't complete my graduate degree on time, at least. And because I was doing the website, spending all my time doing that. And it took me probably 2-3 months to finish the initial design and get the initial baseball reference up while I was doing that.
It's your credit. We now know that you're an environmental hero, because by doing that, you literally got rid of Total Baseball physical.
Yeah, that's right. I've got about 20 of those on my shelf. Yeah, it's
like 35 pounds each.
Hey, you gotta fill us in on what Pete is talking about here. You guys used to get on your grandpa's tractor.
So the tractor had a front loader, which is kind of a big scoop, and so that would be our backstop. So we didn't have a catcher because there were only 4 of us. So the pitcher would throw, and the front loader would essentially be the catcher backstop for that. And then it would be, we think we may have played one hop where, if you caught it on one hop, it was still an out, and that, obviously you had to have ghost runners and all that kind of stuff. But my grandpa had a machine shed that was probably maybe 150, 200 feet from home plate. And so, hit it over that was a home run, obviously. And it was, we had a good time.
So let me tell you, this page right here, I'm guessing I'm responsible for 75% of the traffic to that page. I'm guessing
that's a good choice.
I may be undercutting it just a bit, but I'll feel comfortable with 75%. But you started out with the baseball reference in that article that talked about, you took that to 1 billion page views. Is that just for the baseball reference?
No, that's across all of our sites. So this is not a solo effort. We, a friend of mine, Doug Drennan, started the football site about a year later, because he was, similarly interested in football stats as I was in baseball stats. And then Justin Gabacco joined us in 2004 after he had kind of created the initial basketball reference. And so the company didn't really form until 2007. And so we brought the 3 sites together, and they'd always been related and looked alike and stuff like that. But we brought them together in 2007, kind of rewrote everything and got it going. And then from there, we added hockey soon after, and college basketball, college football. We, for a while, had an Olympic site, which the IOC actually bought a couple of years ago. And so that, was kind of the genesis, and then we've grown organically. We have a really great team of 11 people total who are working day in, day out to get this up and running every day.
How do you validate all that data? I mean, there's so much.
And just talk about how you kind of collect, and how do you get all of it and all that stuff?
Yeah, I often tell people we're not landing people on the moon. We're not running a bank. So if there are errors, it's it's probably not the end of the world. And I will tell you, a lot of the errors actually come from the official records. The official records come from people looking at ledgers of old ledgers and counting up the columns of data, and adding them up and stuff. And sometimes they get off by a column. Sometimes the one bleeds through from the previous page. So I think when I've been doing the site for 20 years, I think TICOP's hit totals have changed like 4 or 5 times, due to additional research. So it's an imperfect thing, but in terms of like historical data, we work with a number of partners. Like Pete Palmer is probably the greatest researcher in baseball history, and he collected all of most of the seasonal baseball data from various sources. Obviously, he worked with people, and David Neft was a great researcher in baseball as well. So all these people have, over time, all of this has been accumulated. Some cases it's publicly available. Some cases we license it from people. Current season is more automated. There are a number of companies that will sell you data for on an ongoing basis. The leagues have partnerships with them, and you've seen a big growth of that recently because of gambling legalization in the U.S. And so there are a lot of data companies trying to get into that now. So that's actually probably been a good thing for us. It's made more data available to us than would be otherwise. But I think where we mainly the main thing we add is that we kind of put a friendly face on all of this. We make it very easy to use. We combine a lot of data sets. We pull it all together and make it into a cohesive whole.
Do you work with sites like Seamhead since they have such deep data on the Negro League?
Yes, well, so Seamheads, the guy who designed Seamheads actually works for us, Dan Hirsch. So he's the web, nice. He does Seamheads on the side. So we hired him 2 years ago. Today is actually his 2-year anniversary with the company.
Wow.
And so, cool. So he works for us, works on our baseball site, and kind of ironically, he's done most of the work on our soccer site the last 2 years as well. He's also a bit of a soccer fan.
So you said, go.
Well, I was just going to say that there's been a big move lately. There's been a lot of discussion around should the Negro Leagues be considered a major league, and so Seamheads we have a set of Negro League data that came from the Hall of Fame that was compiled in 2006 by a group of researchers for the Hall of Fame. That data has been exceeded by what Seamheads has, and if somebody was asking me where to go for Negro League data, I would say go to Seamheads. Don't use ours. And so, I would love to work with them at some point. I think it's certainly possible that it could happen in the future. And I think you're seeing a lot of momentum both in Major League Baseball and people like us and them and who compile statistics to say that from at least, if not more, at least 1920 to 1948, Negro National League should be considered a major league, given the quality of play. And so I would strongly endorse that. And I think we're going to try and make some moves to see if we can get that to happen, at least on our site.
So you said you became a business in 2007, but when did it come into your mind that you could actually make a business out of this?
So I was a math professor for the first 6 years of doing this. The site was very different back then. It didn't update daily. It updated at the end of the year. And so it was more like a book that you would buy at the end of the year, and we would have updated stats at the end of the season. I would say, probably 2004, 2005 is when I started to, we started out with like an NPR kind of appeal to, if you like the site, send us money. And we were, getting $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 a year doing that. And then I hit upon an idea of sponsoring a page where you could actually, it was based on the popularity of the page. Like Barry Bonds might have cost you $700 while Jerry Koosman would have been $25. And so, based on that, you could sponsor the page. You could put a message on there. Some could be advertising, could be my husband and I saw Brad Radke pitch the first date we went on, something like that. So that actually did quite a bit better, and we were making $40,000, $50,000, $60,000. And so I said, that I can do this. This can work. I have a path forward. Luckily, college professors aren't paid that great at the level that I was at, so I wasn't dissuaded from doing it. But it's obviously worked out very well, and very happy with the results.
It's amazing. So you're opening a pro soccer site? Is it pro?
Yeah, we've actually had it almost 2 years now. So it's been slow going, though. I'm not surprised. Brent's probably been on Eric Dickerson more than people have been on our soccer site, based on the traffic. So, but it's growing. We're doing it. Every day we're doing a little better. Every month traffic's going up. And hopefully we're getting a little momentum built for that. But soccer it's I've got, I started watching soccer probably 8-9 years ago, and really have gotten into it since then. It's an interesting problem in the sense that the soccer world is just mind-boggling more complicated than any North American sporting interest. Because you got teams changing leagues, going up and down, relegation, promotion. You've got teams playing in multiple competitions within a single week. They might play in 3 or 4, 2 or 3 different competitions. And so, just organizing that, collecting all of that is a really big problem. And so we've been making some progress. I think we have at this point, one of the areas we're very interested in is sabermetrics and analytics. And so on our soccer side, we partner with a group called StatsBomb out of the UK that has people watching all the matches and actually tracking passes and things like that. So we use some of that data to kind of illuminate the game in a way that hasn't been done before, at least publicly in that way. And so I think we're making a lot of progress there. And I'm excited for the season. The Premier League kicks off in about a week, and I'm hopeful that we'll see a nice boost in traffic as the European leagues get back into the flow of things this fall.
The soccer site, the football site, is global, where most of the other sites are U.S.
More or less. So on the basketball side, we also cover European leagues. We also have Chinese basketball. We have the Australian League on the basketball side. On the baseball side, we have the Taiwanese League. We have Nippon Pro Baseball. We have Caribbean Winter League. Things like that. So we do, if there's relevant information that a fan might want, we do try to access and provide all that information to users.
This is just have you talked to Charlie Shin over at Major League Soccer? He runs.
I have not.
You might want to. He's the VP of fan engagement and analytics too. And,
okay. Yeah. All right.
Afterwards.
We'll yeah. Right. So you, I think I saw one of these articles that you see the pro basketball or basketball reference being one of those that you think is going to grow pretty dramatically over the course of the next couple of years. Why is that? What's driving that?
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. I mean, baseball obviously being the first has been the most historically been the most popular every year. And so I think, baseball obviously has had issues this year with the shortened schedule and all that. NBA's managed to play most of their season, but the NBA will definitely exceed baseball. The basketball site will definitely exceed the baseball site in traffic this year. And it was heading in that direction, I think, to some degree. I think a lot of it is international. I think we get more international traffic. The NBA in Australia, for instance, is hugely popular, and it's growing more popular in Europe as well. And so I think that is having a lot of influence on, so there's that. And then the other thing is the NBA fans, I feel like baseball, there was kind of this, there wasn't a smooth transition into looking at analytics to trying to crunch the numbers. There was a lot of an old guard that kind of dismissed them and said they weren't relevant and should be ignored. And on the NBA, you've seen, literally none of that. I mean, I could point to dozens of articles where people, talked about how war was good for, war, what is it good for kind of stuff, on our site.
Absolutely nothing. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, exactly. And I can't find a single, I probably couldn't point to a single basketball article where they said, why are we talking about these win shares or PER or anything like that? Or, it's really been a smooth transition where, fans now on the basketball side are very savvy about, looking at more advanced statistics.
What about fantasy sports? Did you see like a dramatic increase in website traffic as fantasy sports kind of took off?
I mean, it's, I joke that for being a sports analytics site, we don't do very good business analytics because I can't really necessarily tell you exactly what people are using our site for on a day in, day out basis. I know sports gambling legalization in the U.S. probably doesn't hurt. I know fantasy sports obviously doesn't hurt. All those things come together, and but we also we just get a lot of people who want to argue about should the Yankees trade for this pitcher or should they trade for that pitcher, and so you get a lot of sports talk, a lot of discussion. bulletin boards, all that kind of stuff, Reddit. And, I see our site, Twitter. I see our sites on all of those places. So people are looking things up, and I think people like to play amateur GM or amateur coach, and make their own decisions about.
I think you got one of those right there with the Yankees argument stuff.
Right.
Yeah, but so if you want a use case, how I use your site for the Yankees, go to your site, I look at the data, then I ignore it all, and then I argue with people anyway. That's pretty much how it works.
You sound like a fun person to argue with.
No, it's nobody actually pays attention to data when you're arguing. Right? It's like, even though your data is the most fascinating data in sports, really, it's all of it, aside from one thing. And secondly, there's so many ways to slice and dice the data with the way you have it set up there, which is one of the great parts of the varying sites is you can get to anything you want in the way you want really easily. And this is a little known thing, not a little known, I know you know it, but a small thing that you do that I find insanely valuable is the ability to highlight a period, right? A number of years. That is so valuable. It's amazing. Right. And I doubt people take as much advantage of it as they should, but it's
So what Paul's referring to is if you're on like a game log or a player page, if you click on 1 year, just on the row anywhere on there, and then click on another row, it'll sum up for you and pop up and show you what the total and the average is between those two. Yeah, I have to say that's my favorite. That's probably my proudest programming achievement is doing that. I haven't seen many places that have either recreated that or done that, but that's a big win when you're trying to look for spans of games and things like that.
Oh, I agree. Amazing. So who are your teams? Who do you root for?
That was exactly what I was going to have.
Oh, no.
That was exactly what because I know he's a Philly guy, so I'm curious as to, I grew up in Philly, so I'm guessing you're going to say a lot
I grew up in Iowa, actually. So I moved to Philly it's been 20 years now. So I would say I am more or less a Philly fan. I mean, I probably watch almost all the Eagles games and, follow the Philly. We have our office, we share season tickets for the Sixers and the Phillies among our office and have a big draft at the beginning of the year to divvy up the tickets and stuff. So I would say probably for Philly, I'm number one a Sixers fan, though they're making it very hard recently. I probably then Eagles and then Phillies. I grew up, for whatever reason, I'm not sure why, a Red Sox fan in the middle of Iowa.
God.
I was a big Wade Boggs guy and liked, Dwight Evans and Wade Boggs and Jim Rice. So that was...
Where in Iowa did you live?
I grew up in Manning, Iowa, which is a very small town in western Iowa.
I lived in Iowa, so I know it.
Whereabouts?
I was in Davenport. I was like the heart.
I went to school in Grinnell College for undergrad, and then also went to Iowa State and University of Iowa for additional degrees. So.
Our buddy Jesus Hoyos went to Iowa State.
Yeah,
I think he went undergrad. Yeah.
Yeah, I was there for 2 years, and I'm a engineering school dropout.
I knew it. I knew you were going to say that. Anytime I ever hear anyone who went to Iowa State, engineering schools involved one way or the other. Half of the Middle East went to Iowa State for engineering.
Right. Well, if you were in the Midwest, they could also be agriculture, but if you're not on if you're not in the Midwest, it's probably engineering.
Well, I think petroleum engineering is like a big deal there at the time.
I'm not 100% sure, to be honest. I was mechanical engineering.
Yeah.
So I had a noticeable groan when you said you were a Red Sox fan. That's because this guy right here that I just posted his comment, we just don't get along because he loves all the Boston sports. So I just had to pop that up just so I could acknowledge, he said it. All right, moving on. So since you're a Sixers fan, what do you think about Bret Brown getting fired?
So my Sixers fandom dates back to Sam Hinkie being the general manager of the Sixers.
The process, trusting the process.
I'm a huge fan of the process. I'm not surprised. I think he's safely somewhere in between 11 and 20 and NBA coaches probably if you look at if you were to rank them. So I'm sad to see him go. I think he seems like a good guy, and I think he worked pretty hard for the team and did pretty well for him. Put up with a lot, during the early years. So I blame, I certainly don't blame him for anything that's happened in the last 2 to 3 years. I'm much more blaming the administration, the management.
I got a buddy that's a huge Sixers fan. He still lives kind of in that area. So I'd be remiss if I didn't ask. So do you think that Ben Simmons will ever lead them to the promised land?
I think Simmons and Embiid is a tough fit. I think there are ways to make it work. The way to make it work probably is to have an insane amount of shooting around the two of them, and they certainly have not had that, the last 2 years. It is very frustrating as a Sixers fan to see him like never shoot a 3-pointer, and it's really aggravating. So, being a Sixers fan has been really tough the last 2 years, 2 to 3 years, between Markelle Fultz and, all this stuff, the Colangelos and all that. It's
Markelle Fultz. Boy, what a waste of a #1 pick. I'm not going to pour salt into the wounds, but ugh.
Oh yeah. No, when I'm daydreaming, I make fake rosters that the Sixers could have had, and it's very depressing.
He doctors his pro basketball reference.com pages. Hey, wait a minute. That guy never played for the Sixers.
Right. Oh, yes, he did. Right there. It's right there.
Hey, so your cousin has a question. So I have to put it up there because it's a cousin to cousin question here. I can't help but ask a techie question. How does Sean see AI impacting stats and contract negotiations?
I guess I'm not 100, I guess I'll refer to it as analytics. I think AI probably plays into that in some role, and also kind of uncovering trends and things like that. I think if you look at it on baseball, teams are now veteran players are having an incredibly hard time getting signed because teams are getting much smarter. They understand the age curve in a way that they didn't before. And so they know that players who are 24, 25, 26 are probably in the peak of their career, 27 as well. And then after that, they're not going to pay for the declining, value that they provide. And, it's the same way in basketball. You kind of see the same thing where you've got this kind of stratosphere where you have, one player with the ball in his hands all the time, like James Harden or LeBron James or, people like that. And then the other players are, kind of interchangeable parts who are shooters and defenders and around them. And so I think the teams are definitely, in some ways it's kind of sad because I'd like to see more stolen bases. I'd like to see more triples in baseball, but, the numbers point out home runs, strikeouts aren't a big deal. Swing for the fences, hit home runs, try and draw walks. And so, it's definitely impacting. And we see it as well where the agencies are far behind where the teams are at this point. And so I think the players and the agents have kind of been blindsided by what the teams have been able to, the accomplishments and the knowledge that the teams have acquired over the last 5 to 10 years has really outpaced what anything the agents have done. And so, now like the Players Association in baseball, they license things like our War Dad and some other things like that as well. So they kind of have a common framework, to discuss with the teams. But it's definitely a case where management has the upper hand in all this because they've got, the Dodgers probably have 12, 13 people working on this stuff, day in, day out. So it's definitely an arms race where everybody's trying to get more and more in tune with this.
Right, I think I saw. I was just going to throw a real quick one in. Okay. I think I saw in one of those articles that is it like 95% of your revenue comes from ads, search ads?
Yeah. So that's currently that's the case. It's an interesting place to be in because I always, I joke that every night I pray to Google and that they see fit to continue to listing us in their search results because that's a big portion of our traffic and so we have however launched a subscription feature called StatHead which is available currently on basketball, hockey, and baseball, and football. Lord willing, will launch next week as well. And so that's more of an in-depth search tool, kind of not. Sort of like a Bloomberg terminal for sports, kind of where you can look up, you can say, what Dodgers catcher had 3 home runs in a game, and it'll show you like every time that's so that's like on the baseball side, we have every game log and box score back to 1901 for every game. So that's back to the start of the American League. And so you can literally search through every Yankee game in history and find, every time a Yankee pitcher had 10, which Yankee pitcher had the most 10 strikeout games in his career.
You just got a customer, man.
Yeah. So stathead.com. So you go there and we have that, different sports have a little bit different coverage, but like for football, we have every rushing and passing and receiving record, not play, but every game level piece of data back to 1960. And so, you can search through all that. And, so we, some of it is, like for instance, we had a day this week where like 2 NBA general managers signed up for it. And so, they're using their own systems for a lot of stuff, but I think for kind of top level stuff, we get people using this. And I know a lot of broadcasters use it. ESPN is one of our biggest customers on that. And so their research department is using that for broadcast and things like that. So that's kind of our effort to maybe not quite be so ad reliant going forward.
So I was just going to say, if there's anybody who wants to get Paul a Christmas present,
I
think
right. Gift subscriptions are on our roadmap, so we need to bump that up. I think
pretty easy. Actually, that would just be telling someone like, go pay for it, right? That's all. It's not. It shouldn't be that hard. Look, so that's a change in kind of the the more or less the payment side of the business model. But what about over time? You have soccer now up for 2 years.
Right.
So, and you're kind of building that out, making it people more aware. Where do you go from there from the standpoint of the reference sportsreference.com itself? I mean, other sites deeper beyond even stathead or stathead. I mean, what?
Well, yeah. So I think I think we're viewing StatHead. It's only been up for 3 or 4 months now. Is that's going to become a platform where other things can be built off of that. And so we kind of like I think longer term we'd like to make that a kind of a hub where and maybe even partner with other sites if there are subscription sites out there that want to plug into our payments and membership and things like that. Maybe that's something we do. That's a long ways off, but I think that's a possibility. The other thing that we're looking at, it was kind of interesting when the game stopped being played in March. We initially had a dip in traffic, and then probably starting in April, it kind of picked back up almost to where it was before. And I think a lot of that was, Major League Baseball was showing, 102 hours of Derek Jeter, games, and NBA was showing classic games, and the Jordan documentary was a huge boon for us because everybody's looking at Pippen and Jordan and Luke Longley and stuff like that. So, I think for us, we kind of looked at that and saw when people are watching games, they want to be on our sites, looking stuff up. And so, I think at some point we may look at doing, we don't have any live scoring tools at the moment, but something that's more stats oriented where you can follow along the game, and maybe if it's 3rd and 5, you can see the last 10 3rd and 5 plays the team ran, just shown to you in the box score while you're watching the game, or in the game cast while you're watching the game, because we have all that information.
Well, you have a mobilely friendly site. I mean, isn't it?
Yes.
All the sites, I literally have bookmarked every one of them on here, but you don't have a mobile app per se, right? So what about something along those lines to also help you? I mean, that's where also a lot of StatHead would be a great value.
Right. Yeah. I mean, we've talked about that. We only have 11 people. We probably should be hiring people, to be honest with you, but we're only at 11 people, and so. I think once we maybe add our head count a little bit, an app would be something we could, strongly consider.
I'm literally guessing you could get a young developer who loves sports to do it for nothing. I am not kidding. People love sports. Look, Brent and I both sit on this steering committee and board of this organization called SEAT, Sports Entertainment Alliance Technology, right? And so we know the teams, the leagues, we see them all the time. Right. And there's an enormous number of immensely talented young people who work in sports who could make literally 3 to 5 times this money doing the exact same thing in tech or somewhere else.
Oh, yeah. So I'm well aware of that. I've been to the winter meetings several times where, kids from MIT and Caltech and Yale and places like that are throwing themselves at general managers begging for an unpaid job. So it's yeah, I definitely am aware of that. Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, the main thing that's held us back from doing an app is just having to maintain another platform, and so having to manage all that. And there's a lot of it's the initial app is kind of easy to do. The ongoing maintenance is kind of what I'm worried will bite us. So, but I agree, it's definitely something that there's been enough discussion about. We probably need to do it.
Although, to your credit, you really are very mobily friendly. I mean,
Right,
it's very easy to use just the bookmark site itself on any.
Yeah, that's my counter argument, is that basically what all we'd be doing is putting our website in an app, and charging you money for it. So it's you can use
with StatHead, then that kind of can change the game, I think.
Right.
So,
right, possibly. Yeah, I could see that.
Could you? There's some really interesting kind of stories in these articles about people who really were watching these stats on your site and seeing maybe a little issue and saying, hey, can you update this, because I want to let people know that I actually played or I did not bat 200 or something like that.
Yeah. There are a number of things like that. I mean, the first one is, for a long time, young gentlemen didn't realize that all of these stats were online, and so they would lie about their playing in Major League Baseball or minor league baseball. And so I remember, like, early on getting calls from women who said, I met this gentleman at a bar 2 nights ago, and he said he played Major League Baseball, but I can't find him on your site. So there's that. We've had players' parents email us to tell us that their birthplaces are wrong, or we got some other factoid wrong about that. Probably the most persistent one that I can remember is there's a minor league pitching coach who pitched in Italy for, I think, 2 years. We, just because of when the seasons cut off, we only had one of those seasons on our site, and he had like a 9.54 ERA that season, and he had a 3 ERA the previous season. And so he said, my players are like looking this up, and I'd have no credibility because they think I was terrible. And if you just put this extra season on there, it'll fix everything. And so I think I told him, it's really annoying to have to like insert one-off data into the database. We get this data from another group, and so I'm not going to do it. And like finally he said, I'll pay you money, I'll whatever it takes. And so we put a note on his page that says, in the previous season, it's just like a special note only on his page that shows up to do that. So it's we do, it's kind of a responsibility, because we have independent league data on our site. So a lot of these indie league players, their resume is their baseball reference page in a lot of cases. If they've been playing in the minor league, in the Pioneer League for 3 years, the only place that has those stats is our site. And so if they're trying to catch on with another league, or maybe even get signed to a minor league contract, it's important to them. And so we definitely try to do our best with that. But yeah, sometimes I know like only 4 people have looked at this guy's page, and in the last 10 years, but we definitely go through hoops to try and get it all right.
So what's your relationship with Saber specifically?
Sure. Yeah, we have a very good relationship with Saber. I've been a member for 20 some years. I go to the convention every year. It's my favorite time of the year. It's going to be in Baltimore next summer, COVID willing, and I'll be there. Absolutely be there. We get some of our data. So Saber has a very active research committees, and so, for instance, the biographical committee for Saber, their mission is to research the birthplace, death place. I think they have dates and cemeteries as well, and handedness and debut dates for every player who's ever played in the major league. So when you go to a player and see, that he was born in 1872 in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and died in 1948, in Plymouth Meeting, Pennsylvania, that's because probably some Saber member went through census cards and went through other means to find that information. And so it's a pretty heroic effort. I'm constantly amazed at they have a newsletter where they talk about the find of the month or the find of the quarter or something like that, and it's invariably some person has spent probably 15 hours trying to find going through different records or traveling to libraries, trying to find, this particular player's birthplace, and going down different routes and finding that. So, and I was thinking, if the Negro League, if we do, move one of the Negro Leagues into Major League Baseball, that's going to bring a whole new set of players that are going to need to be researched and discovered and all of that. So, so that's, that could be a very big job for a very long time at this point.
So how do you deal with like data from the sort of quasi major leagues like Federal League, things like that?
Right.
It's not quite as easily available, and I know Saber has a book on it, but beyond that.
So the major leagues were basically chosen by a committee in 1969, I think it was. It was all done previous to the Big Map Baseball Encyclopedia that came out in 69, I think. And so there was a committee, and they looked at a number of different things. And then once they decided that, the Federal League, the Union Association, the Players League, and the American Association, that those should be considered major leagues, then the ICI group, led by David Neft, started researching and going through, the Hall of Fame has information. Some of the league offices had, obviously there's not a Federal league office, but some of the league offices had information. A lot of it was just going through newspapers. The beauty of the society back then is that, each city had 4 or 5 newspapers. It wasn't like today when newspapers are barely getting by. There was a day, and all the games were day games. And so they'd try to have the games done by 6 o'clock or so. So the evening newspaper would have a full account of the game. Yeah. And so if you go to the library, you get a full account, play-by-play account of the game. So the business person can take it on the train, and just like instead of looking it up on their phone, they would open the paper and read the account of the game as they were riding home on the train. And so you can find, a tremendous amount, newspapers.com is a tremendous resource. We use it for looking up stuff and, finding information. One of our recent research projects, a gentleman, Mike Lynch, who's worked for us for a number of years now, he basically endeavored to find every buzzer beater in NBA history, literally back to 1948. So the first thing he did is he made a list of every game that finished within 3 points. And then he first, for recent games, you could find a play-by-play accounts online. So he went through each one, finding it, was this a buzzer beater? Previous to that, he had to go through newspapers.com, and he read newspaper accounts of all the games to find out, how the game ended and whether there was in fact, the shot ended the game. And so, the NBA, playing their playoffs this week, it was the first game, I think, since 1979 where it ended on a free throw. Because the guy was fouled as time expired. And so thankfully we were credited for that information and for finding that. But we have that list on our site, so you can search for literally every buzzer beater in NBA history.
That's great.
I got just one last one, and I'm in down in Atlanta Metro, which is SEC football country.
Sure.
And tell us a little bit about the collegefootball.com and how is that something that's growing in interest? I live down here, so everything SEC football is actually bigger than the Falcons.
Right.
I'm just curious about how it is.
My wife and I, so Baseball Reference was actually created in Macon, Georgia. My wife was teaching at Mercer University for a year. And so we were just married. I tagged along with her, and I was basically sitting in my apartment the entire day and making Baseball Reference. But I did note that like every Friday, it was like the NASCAR and SEC football previews were what led the paper, which is a lot different than I had in Iowa. So, our college football site it's sportsreference.com/CFB. We also have CBB for college basketball. College football is definitely, all the sites are growing to some degree, but college football is definitely, every Saturday, previous to this year, we saw a big boost in traffic and people looking things up. It's just from a business standpoint, it's a little bit different because your players are changing every year. There's no Tom Brady page to go back to every season, or Matt Ryan page to go back to every season. It changes from year to year, and so that's a little bit of a challenge, and making sure that when you got a hot freshman who's coming in, that he shows up on Google for you and stuff like that. But I think our college football pretty complete back to the 50s, I think, for college football. And so it's a
Wow.
little bit harder than the pros because it's not always as clear what's an official game, what's not, what's who's a top level league, who's in a top level league. Obviously, recent years are more clear, but so we have definitely all of the like ball carrier and quarterback, all the skill position stats. We're definitely missing, like, we don't have Letterman for 1963 Purdue or something like that, but we do have significant number of rosters on the site, and continually try to expand it and add to it.
So I think before we wrap, I've got two final things. First, I really would like you to take Homer Jones's page and put it on your landing page for sports reference.
Did you see the comment? I hate to show up. It completely blocks out Sean. It's so much a long comment. Yeah, he's trying to get.
Well, I put him in the Hall of Fame just for that.
Thank you.
That's all you need. If you invented the spike, then he and Glenn Burke, who invented the high five, can both go into the Hall of Fame. So.
There we go. The spike and the high five.
The high five.
And the final thing is, can you tell people a little more about the pricing of StatHead and things like that?
Sure. Yeah. So it's we have it for the 3 sites. Football's going to launch very soon. So it's stathead.com, and it's $8 a month for a single sport, and then $16 for all of the sports. Which eventually there'll be 5 options there. We're adding a college basketball, football combined option. Probably, I think we'll build the site, but we won't start charging for that until probably next fall at the earliest. But yeah, it's $8 a month. We just launched. We don't yet have a yearly option. We'll probably add that fairly soon. But it's I think it's the only place you can get this data, short of going to like a Stats LLC and paying them thousands and thousands of dollars. So hopefully people will find value from it.
Well, I'm signing up. I can tell you that. So
yeah, I think I have to too, because I just love this stuff. But this has been great. I got to shout out once again to your cousin Pete for making the introduction, because this has been a great hour. We just had a feeling it would be, even without talking to you before, because we just love this stuff. So it's great to have this kind of conversation. And hey, we would love to have you back if you're willing to come back.
I'd be happy to anytime. Let me know.
How about you and Don Zaminda on the same show?
I know Don a little bit. I see him at Saber conventions, and yeah, Don's a good guy. I definitely enjoy talking to him.
I've literally known him since my second day of college.
Oh, really? Oh, wow.
Yeah, long time.
Well, hey, enjoy the long weekend, and once again, thanks. We really enjoyed this conversation.
All right,
fantastic.
Thanks a lot.
All right, so I'm Brent Leary.
I'm Paul Greenberg.
We are the CRM Playaz. We will see you next week. Enjoy the long weekend. We will. Sheltering in place. We will.